face.
Isn't that a great face?
Yeah.
Different types of foods eaten at different times of the day in different combinations lead to different hormonal responses in the body. This is absolutely at the heart of our work.
So one of my favorite aha moments, and I say it again and again and again, is every single time you put food into your mouth, you will have a hormonal response. That hormonal response is either going to take you to wellness or it is going to take you to further inflammation. So very commonly, and just going back to the Weight Watchers and the Slimming Worlds and all of those, the calories in, calories out, the common misconception is, oh, I'll just have that little bit of cake or that one biscuit because it won't really make a difference. I've just been a bit naughty. I can get back on track later. We're thinking about that from the perspective of calories or being able to stay with our discipline on a plan. We're not thinking about it from the perspective of hormonal imbalance and then what that biscuit or that piece of cake is then doing to the knock-on effect to our hormones. That's the bit that is completely missing from any of those diets. So yeah, you can have a Freddo that's 5 sins. You can eat that any time of day, except that is going to massively cause hormonal imbalance and actually make you hungrier. So blood sugar hormones. So most people know about insulin. Insulin lowers blood sugar. Our blood sugars get too high. Insulin is released. Insulin lowers blood sugar. It is, however, what most people don't know, the primary hormone involved in fat storage and weight gain. Now, anything where there is obesity, going into diabetes, or, sort of like constant weight issues, or even down to things like perimenopause, we will have insulin resistance. So insulin stops working. So we just keep making more of it until we actually end up in full-blown diabetes. We can't make any of it. We end up making more of it, but it stops working. So it stops reducing blood sugar, stops lowering them. And instead, we're just constantly getting this signal of fat storage, fat storage, fat storage. So really what we need is a diet that doesn't require constant insulin production. And those Weight Watchers models absolutely constantly require insulin production. So I also just want to talk about going back to the Diet Coke situation. Those aspartames, or a lot of the sugar sweeteners that are used in those drinks, they actually signal when every time I put food in my mouth, I have a hormonal response. The body thinks it's getting sugar. So it goes, oh, sugar's coming, quick, tell the pancreas to make insulin. So insulin is made. And then guess what? In the case of the Diet Coke, no sugar has come. So now my blood sugars are falling. And so guess what the response to that is? The body signals you need sugar. So we're actually, there's that old adage, drinking diet drinks makes you fat. It's because we end up with all this messed up sugar signaling. So insulin is very, very key in weight management. But there are 3 other blood sugar hormones that aren't really talked about. So we've got leptin. So leptin is a fat loss hormone. It reduces appetite. It gauges our energy reserves in the body and will adjust our food requirements. So that's the holy grail, right? Like, as someone who was always overweight going, oh, why can't my body just stop when it's had enough? It's because my leptin was a mess. So I was that kid who never, ever, ever, ever felt full, like ever. Like I could eat and eat and eat, and I just didn't have the off button. So leptin imbalances, the 2 red flags are I'm never full, or I'm just never hungry. Oh, I'll just nibble on something. I graze throughout the day because I'm never really hungry. That's a leptin imbalance. And so when I finally actually got my blood sugar hormones balanced and I was actually eating in a way that supported my body, guess what? I actually get to the point where I can leave bits of meals. I just don't even recognize myself. So the level of leptin in our blood is directly related to how much body fat we have. Isn't that fascinating? So leptin, not talked about, hugely, hugely important. It's very carbohydrate sensitive. So the more carbohydrates we eat, the more our leptin will become imbalanced. So then we have ghrelin. So ghrelin is our hunger hormone. It stimulates appetite. So you can see that these 2 work together. So the higher the levels of ghrelin, so ghrelin is, as you eat, your ghrelin drops, and then over the time after you've eaten, ghrelin rises, and when it hits a certain point, that's when you get the tummy rumbling. That's like the gremlins in your tummy. That's ghrelin. So but if you've got high levels of ghrelin because your body is all over the place with blood sugars, you'll just be really, really hungry all the time. So you can see that they work together. So, oh, I'm hungry. Again, incredibly sensitive to carbohydrates. You are not going to get ghrelin under control long term on things like the Weight Watchers type diets. So then we have cholecystokinin. And or CCK, because it's quite a mouthful. So cholecystokinin is connected to satisfaction and post-meal fatigue. So when people go, I just get that, I get exhausted after a meal, it's because their cholecystokinin is imbalanced. And so there is evidence of less than average cholecystokinin in obese people. So you can see that these are really connected. Now, whenever we do these talks, we focus on these blood sugar hormones, and we always bring in other aspects of what they do. But I just really want to talk about how leptin, ghrelin, and cholecystokinin, in one of our other talks, we talk about it in relationship, and we'll be talking about it in anxiety. Very much they are connected to imbalances will lead to anxiety. So this is actually something called the protein leverage hypothesis, that if a human doesn't eat enough protein, they will be anxious. Their body is anxious until they have actually had enough protein, because there's this feeling of malnutrition. And so, like, I know for me, I always had this sort of panic, when I went gluten-free, dairy-free, those kind of things. It was like this, I had to take food with me everywhere I go, because what if I can't eat? What if I can't eat? What if I can't eat? And that was such a sign that my blood sugars still weren't balanced. So people who are just like quite anxious around food, or anxious in general, I'm always looking at those blood sugars.
So what I'd like to add is, yes, all of these blood sugar hormones work together, but what I think is interesting is where they are produced in the body.
Mm-hmm.
So insulin is produced in the pancreas, leptin is produced in our fat cells, ghrelin is produced in the stomach.
Oh,
a
yeah.
gastric band that is stressing the stomach, then we will have an imbalance of ghrelin. And cholecystokinin is produced in the small intestine, which is the part of the digestion that connects into the stomach, which is where we absorb all of our foods. So this is where we're starting to see, yes, the importance of blood sugars is absolutely critical when we're looking at weight maintenance, but how these hormones are produced in the digestive system, ghrelin and cholecystokinin, how important digestive function is in the balance of blood sugars.
Which, if you're bypassing the stomach and if you're sticking an elastic band around it, how is that taken into consideration? How are you balancing leptin, ghrelin, and CCK? So you just got hungry people walking around going, well, I've had the surgery, so now I just need willpower. I categorically do not believe in willpower. I believe in balancing your blood sugars, and I believe in desire and discipline. But you can't have the desire and the discipline until you've got balanced blood sugars, because you are just setting yourself up to fail. And then we're back in that negative spiral of, I'm just so fat, I can't do anything about it, I'm just useless. How much self-loathing can I heap on myself today?
I think that this is one of the most important things to communicate to your clients. And actually, when you start seeing clients in your clinical practice, because blood sugars is at the beginning of our training, we talk about blood sugars all the time, and you just see it again and again and again. And actually, it's illuminating for clients, and it's a relief, actually, for many, many people who have spent years and years and years battering themselves with a diet that doesn't work, and then they see you in clinic and you're able to give this education, and they're able to have hope that actually they can get underneath this, that the reason that they are so hungry is not because of willpower.
Because they're hungry.
It's a chemical reaction that's happening in the body. It's the body trying to tell us something.
They're actually hungry. Out of interest as well, leptin and ghrelin take about 5 days to get balanced in the body when we actually go onto a diet which is supporting them, or actually any diet. So as soon as you start on any diet where you are cutting calories or cutting something out, it will take five days for leptin and ghrelin. And so I always feel like it's what we're doing is we're sending them to their room to tidy it. Like, go to your room, figure it out. and it's going to take 5 days for them to do that job. But that's the key thing. Like, anyone who's done a diet will know that that first week is hell, and then somehow you kind of get into it. But very often it's like the body gets used to restriction. When we actually are on a really a diet that's incredibly nutrient dense, not too few calories, really nourishing our body, and we feel our blood sugars sort of balanced, it is such a relief. Like, it's like, oh yeah, I'm not hungry. I don't even have to think about food anymore. This is just, it's a game changer. So this is the blood sugar roller coaster. And so the green sort of nice sine wave is how our blood sugars should be. But what happens in most people's diets is our blood sugars are low. When they're low, when they go below a certain level, the body will send the hormone cortisol. Now, cortisol's job is to get us out of danger. And it does that by putting sugar into our bloodstream and muscles so that we can literally have the fuel to run away from things. So cortisol spikes our blood sugars. So either we have cortisol because like we've just woken up in the morning, that's a natural time for cortisol to be high to get us out of bed to go break our fast. Then we eat, blood sugars drop. So at that point, either we're going to have another burst of cortisol, or that's when we tend to eat something sugary. If we're in this blood sugar roller coaster, we will be craving, our higher brain function shuts down, and we go into the amygdala, the reptilian brain, and we go for quick release sugars. That's that classic thing. Don't go to the supermarket when you're hungry, right? Because you just come out with like a load of chocolate. Just don't do it. And it's just because your body is looking for quick release glucose. So this is actually very commonly the mistakes that are made with people who are diabetic and actually utilizing insulin, is they use these sugar sweets. And actually that always says to me, your diet isn't balanced. So forget the diabetes, actually. Your diet isn't balanced. We can get to the point, and I tried and tested this with an ex-boyfriend who was type 1 diabetic and had the continuous glucose monitor. We can get to the point where the body isn't utilizing very much insulin because we're eating in a way that doesn't require it. And that is ultimately what will lead to long-term wellness.
And remember, when we're looking at this roller coaster, insulin is the fat storage hormone.
Exactly, and that's in one day. You could be looking at 5 bursts of blood sugar, fat storage.